Lost generations. Well, we've been looking at the way society has been progressing. Many say we're in a downward spiral. Earlier this week, we heard of two teenage brothers who were killed for a cell phone. The way we value life. The suspects are still at large. It talks about our value system. This morning, we're to deal with Our Family segment. Daryl Joseph. Daryl was actually here just a couple of weeks ago talking about a lighter topic. But we thought, in light of all that's happening, a lost generation seems to be the pervading trend or the pervading thread that connects a number of these stories. So there are videos that continue to dominate the online space, Facebook, social media. Videos that are shot in the classrooms of Trinidad and Tobago that I wonder if I went to school in a totally different country. Violent acts, children, flinging children, females beating females, young girls beating young girls. And all of this is happening and it's being posted on the internet. Some of them seem staged, but the fact that it's gaining so much prominence and the fact that all of these videos seem to be happening over and over and over again makes us wonder what's happening in our nation's schools. Is it a lost generation? Why are we now posting these acts of violence? You know, in the US, there are a number of websites which actually post horrific acts. It always amazes me, if you're a fan of CSI or even Criminal Minds, the prominence that these websites gain and the fact that we're always intrigued by violence. We glorify it to an extent, but these are young girls and young boys, teenagers in our high schools. We blame the teachers, we blame the parents. But what's really happening, what's so different today as opposed to 10 years ago when you and I were in probably high schools? The lost generation. Joining us on set now, psychologist Daryl Joseph. Daryl, good morning, how are you?
Morning, Hema. I'm fine, thanks, I'm fine.
Now, you know, we're covering a number of topics this morning, but a very heavy topic, and it's something I spoke to you about the other day.
Yes.
With the amount of videos that seem to be, and I know that we will probably show flashes, and we will not be able to show any of the videos in its entirety. One, because of the explicit content, two, the graphic content, and three, these are minors. No matter that it is on the online space, as a responsible media house, we will not show the videos long enough so you'll be able to identify any of the teenagers involved, because whether you like it, whether I like it, whether we think that their parents should be home dealing with them, these are teenagers, children in some instances, so you're going to see flashes during the interview, so viewer discretion is advised this morning for this topic. Why is it happening?
Okay, so building on something I think we were talking about before, all right, where we see that even among the adult space, aggressive acts or aggressive actions are being tolerated and in some cases even encouraged as a valid means of dealing with conflict or adversity. And a typical example that just sprang to mind is instances where we have a protest, for example, and children are involved as part of the protest. I saw a clip, I can't remember where it was last week, and I'm looking at it and thinking to myself, you know, do the parents, do the adults really understand what messages you're sending to these children, what you're telling them is okay, what you are endorsing, what you are, you know, teaching them as a reasonable and as a viable means of dealing with something that they disagree with? So we see, as I said, aggressive actions, violent actions being somewhat tolerated among the adult population. And of course, children and teenagers mimic what their elders do. So
would I then say that, but sometimes you see these students coming from homes which you consider to be stable homes, mother and father are present, they come from middle income to upper income homes.
Yes.
Some of the schools that are being featured, it's not the schools that you consider to be the at-risk schools.
Oh, no, that whole theory now is just
it's completely out the door.
Yeah,
I've seen many prestige schools involved in these videos.
Absolutely, yeah.
Why are teenagers doing it? Why is it gaining so much prevalence? And it really jars me, Daryl, and I told it really disturbed me because I saw a video of two girls in a school that I attended, and they were beating each other.
Yes.
And I thought, okay, and every other child in the room, and I say that they're children because I think they were 14 or 13, stood there, witnessed it, pulled out their cell phones and took pictures.
Okay, well, you know, there's a general sort of, how should I say, a tolerance and even to some extent an enjoyment of violence. I mean, let's look at, for example, the popularity of the professional wrestling. which I mean, in my time, you know, not that my time was a long time ago, but anyway, in my time, it was there, but it seems to have grown immensely in popularity now, where, you know, you're seeing people throwing each other around and hitting each other, and it's seen as entertainment, okay? So teenagers, again, following what they see happening around and what they see doing, also, and coupled with a sort of a lack of respect, really, for life and for preserving life and preserving health. We're seeing teenagers now seeing it as a form of entertainment. Now, while we say that, I don't have the evidence, but I rather suspect that some of the videos that are circulating are not necessarily genuine.
And that's something one of our producers pointed out to me when we were doing research for this topic. And I know just now we're going to have some of the videos being aired. So viewer discretion is advised for this interview this morning. But it's gaining popularity. So are these children just doing it to gain popularity, to become, what are they doing?
I think some of them are, honestly. I believe some of them are, because I mean, you can become a celebrity overnight on YouTube now, or on Facebook, okay? So I think some of them are, but as to how many are staged and how many actually are real fights that occur and some child pulls out their cell phone, that is yet to be determined. And I think that would be a pretty good piece of research work to do for somebody.
It's also a fallacy that we have, that it only takes place in our males but I've seen it in schools that I've attended, because I attended an all-girls college.
Yes, it's male, female, so-called prestige, so-called non-prestige.
I went to so-called prestige as well.
Exactly. And, you know, you have to say so-called now because it's just, you know, the whole label has...
And peer pressure, what role does peer pressure play? Because what amazes me is that none of the other girls in that video, hopefully we'll get it up in a few seconds, none of the other students in that scenario stopped it. No one stepped forward and said, stop.
Yes.
There are those where, there's even one where, I mean, the girl picks up a chair and starts beating the other girl with it.
Yeah, well, you know, what we're seeing now, I think, is an extension of something that's been happening for a very long time. Now, and again, when I went to school, there was bullying. There was somebody, or there were people in the class that everybody would make fun of and make jokes over and, you know, do pranks and so forth. And nobody would want to stop that or stand up for that person, because then you would similarly be ostracized by your classmates. So I think the same thing is happening now, where maybe the weaker, physically weaker students in the class might be the ones taken advantage of.
Now, look, we have some of the videos that's taking place. And
these images are very disturbing.
These are disturbing images to me, Daryl. And you're seeing, I mean, you can't identify, and as we said, we did blur the video, but there are other people present in the room.
Yeah, and they don't want to be labeled as, you know, whatever you call it now, but they don't want to be seen as not cool, or, you know, not being part of the crowd, part of the in-crowd. It's just another manifestation of that same phenomena, which we know is a very powerful one among teenagers in particular. That desire to fit in and to be part of the crowd and to be accepted by everybody else.
What would cause a child to be so violent?
Again, I mean, it's coming, now, okay. Everything,
I look at it and it scares me looking at it.
Everything to some degree stems from what happens at home. We must never ever lose sight of the link between a child, a developing child, and what they experience at home, okay? And as we know, among the adult population, there's a lot of violence, a lot of aggression. A lot of kids are seeing that at home, and they're experiencing it at home. When you experience violence at home, you act that out when you're outside of the home, okay? Even if you're not seeing it at home, it is all around you.
Are parents even aware of what's happening in the schools?
I don't think so.
I don't. I mean, no. I am in news, and when I see these videos, I'm thinking about what's happening in our schools.
You know something I would like to see come back into our country? Collective responsibility, collective social responsibility. Because there was a time when if my child was seen doing something, my neighbor could come and tell me about it.
Okay, so this is one with the females in that. And
yeah, oh my goodness.
Daryl, these are, this is level licks. This is not even, this is not a fight. This is, I can't understand. These are two females.
But have you ever seen a group of teens looking at a video like this and seen their reaction? They laugh. They think it's funny.
And that is what amazes me.
Yeah,
like,
they think it's
everyone
funny.
in the newsroom, because it's, I think Golda, myself, and everyone else, we were looking at it, the producer, Urvash, everyone was in shock. We're like...
Yeah, and
what?
I'm telling you, you get a group of youngsters to sit down and look at this, and they'll be laughing, they'll be getting kicks off of it, they'll be saying, oh gosh, you see how much licks that one getting, bubbly, this, that, whatnot. It's just seen as entertainment. And that's hard for us, you know, older persons to understand, but...
I like the word older, Daryl, but okay. don't know if I'm loving it, but all right.
Yeah, I get accustomed at some point, right? It's part of my self-therapy as well.
But right. what do parents do? I mean, when you see, so this is really a reality check for a number of parents. Yeah. And if you have a child who's attending any of the schools that are featured here, I'm sure that you're probably wondering, oh my God, what is really happening?
Yeah, parents, keep...
In this one, look, all of, you cannot tell me that none of the children in this video couldn't step in, and so many of them are there.
Yeah, they could have, but again, who wants to be labeled as the person who stopped the fun? It boils down to that.
What do you tell parents now when they have children who are in school and whose child's school may be featured in one of the videos we showed this morning? The fact that there's so many really says something.
Yeah. Parents need to have open lines of communication with their children. The only way you can do that is by spending time, quality time with your child.
But there are some people who don't have time. Like, let's be honest.
You have to make time. You have to make time. Okay? There is time. Everybody has responsibilities. Everybody has things pressing on them. But it is your responsibility as a parent to make the time. I agree you can't find it because it's not there. You have to make it. So if somebody else has to get inconvenienced because you're spending time with your child, so be it. But the stakes are too high. We are talking about me. These kids that we're looking at here, these are the future leaders of our country, yeah?
And we couldn't play the audio because of the amount of explicit language. I can't even say it's fish market vendor. It's worse than that.
No. It's gone way beyond, all right? But understand how high the stakes are, all right? If we don't do something now, if we don't get something in at this point in time, what's going to happen to our country 10, 15 years from now? Remember, oil and gas not going to be around forever. All right? Things are going to change here. We have to look at all the things that are happening at the same time and sort of connect the dots and look at the picture that's developing.
Because in my day, so there were the mean girls, and I could look back at my time in school and think, okay, well, maybe I should not have been so mean. But it was not the level where people would beat each other senselessly in a classroom. No. I
think it's deteriorated a lot over the last 20 years. And I think the access to communication, right, especially enabled through technology, and technology beginning with cable TV. Remember, there was a time when all we had was just one channel, basically.
TTT.
Right. I didn't know if I could say that here. We had 213, and then afterwards, I remember when we got cable TV, and then everybody got a video, a Betamax, and, so... And that whole revolution, which has spiraled all the way to where it is now, where you have access from multiple devices at the same time, all right? I think it's opened up, people have been washed over with all sorts of different ideas and images and...
But it's okay, so let's look at you seeing that. So you're being told to walk away from a fight. We had 2 teenage boys that were killed over a cell phone. And that's because they stood up, and they're 2 brothers, and they said, I'm not going to let anybody bully me into taking what is mine. Which is something that you do, because I don't know if... It just comes back to our value system, but I know I work hard for what I have, and it really does get something in you when someone just wants to take advantage of you.
Yeah, few things can anger me more. But quite honestly, if I am attacked at this point in time for my tablet or my phone or whatever, I have to think about those people who depend on me. I have to think about my family, and I have to consider, I have to weigh it out very quickly. Do I attempt to defend myself from this and possibly risk, losing not only my life, but also crippling my family and the people who depend on me, or do I stand the loss?
So the parents who are looking at these videos this morning, and I know that we'll continue to show little clips of it for the interview, should they talk to their child? What should they say? Should they? And obviously sometimes they don't know. So should a parent now come and have that conversation and say, are these things happening in your school? How should that conversation happen, and what should they say?
Yes. You see, if you have a regular conversation with your child every day, so what happened in school today, and you don't just accept a simple answer like everything normal, because they love to say that, right? Normal. I don't know what normal is anyway, but normal, right?
I probably still tell my mother that up to this day.
But if you get beyond that, and if you have a regular conversation with your child about what happened in school today, there is the opportunity to inquire about things like this, about violence and about what's happening, okay? But it's not going to happen if you don't have that open line of communication with your child, which is why I keep repeating it over and over. If you don't speak to your child, you don't spend time with them, there's no rapport.
But at a teenage age, Darryl, let's be realistic, and this is our family, this segment, the lost generation. Some parents will say that they cannot relate to their children, that at that time, that 14, that 15, I know when I was at that age, no one can tell me anything.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you don't have to put on their clothes and dance to their music. all right? I mean, my relationship with my children is not perfect. I have one teenager and one who thinks that she's a teenager, but she's not. I hope she's watching so she could get that, right? And I mean, we joke about each other's music and the things that we like all the time, all right?
But
I don't understand this stuff, but we talk about it.
How is a parent going to go and say, if you have a child that you obviously don't have a relationship with, you see a video like this on our show this morning, so obviously you know that these are this activity is happening in the schools.
Yes.
How do you reach to that child? A child who would say, stop getting involved in my business, a child who locks their room door, the child that kind of maintains that I'm at that age where you can't tell me what to do.
Right. Well, what I've seen parents do is one of two things. Either they try their best to insist on it, or they have the intervention of somebody else, whether it is a family member that the teenager trusts, whether it is someone like myself, all right, who does this kind of work, but the intervention of somebody else, an aunt, I don't know, an elder sibling, somebody who can penetrate and who can make that connection. But the idea is just not to leave it alone.
But okay, so not to leave it alone.
Yes.
So to the mother and to, what we're gonna, we'll probably try to open our phone lines a little bit during this segment, because if a number of parents probably would need advice. If you know that your child has also been a victim, because let's look at the other side, because we're talking about the bystanders and getting aware of it. If your child has been a victim of this, how then do you speak to your child? Because obviously there's self-esteem issues that come out of this as well. Okay,
well, the self-esteem issues are one thing. I want to make it very clear. If any child has been a victim of any kind of bullying or abuse, it needs to be reported and dealt with. And I'll tell you why that's important. One of the tragedies of our time is that a lot of people feel very helpless. A lot of people feel that they cannot go to the authorities if there's a problem, if they are bullied or if they are advantaged in any way, because nobody will stand up for them. And the way that bullying thrives is when the victims feel powerless to do something about it, okay? So if a child reports to you, or if it's reported to a parent that a child has been bullied, it must be dealt with.
But then you have the flip side with the child telling the parent, I don't want you involved, you're going to make this worse, and the child faces further really. High school is like a jungle now. It's crazy.
But that's exactly how bullying works, and that's how it thrives. Bullying thrives on that fear that if the issue is dealt with, things are going to get worse. And the reality is quite the opposite. It needs to be dealt with. That child who's been bullied must get a sense of vindication, must get a sense that, look, this thing happened to me, but there are consequences for actions. That's the first thing.
On the flip side, and it's a child who is the aggressor.
Yes.
And you find out that your child, because sometimes parents are unaware.
That's right.
So you could have two, what we consider upstanding, moral, picture perfect kind of Brady Bunch family going in front, and you have a child who's leveling licks against other children in school. What do you do if you find out that your child is the aggressor? Yeah,
usually there's always a reason why that happens, and I think that's where the intervention of professionals would come in. Because there's always a reason why a child acts out in that manner. They're acting out, they're expressing aggression and anger, and it's because of something that they're angry about internally. Usually it's some family-related issue.
What advice do you have for parents who may be looking at this show this morning? We're titled The Lost Generation. There are a number of videos that are circulating on the World Wide Web, and some parents are just not aware of it. And a number of local schools are featured in these videos.
Yeah. Consistent advice, talk to your children, get to know them. Spend time with them. Don't judge them. Don't be labeling them all the time. Just get involved with them. Spend whatever time you can with them. Make time for it. Have a relationship. Have a rapport with your child. It's the only and best chance you have of making any kind of impact upon them.
Now, we place a huge burden on teachers. So if a teacher suspects that a child is an aggressor or maybe the victim of bullying.
Yes.
There's the other side where you call in the parents and then the teacher becomes the victim themselves because they're like, my child can't do that.
And that goes back to the same thing I was saying earlier about collective social responsibility. It's something I would really like to see come back into our society where adults are adults, children are children, and everybody understands the distinction. And if an adult tells me something about my child, it is my responsibility and my reaction first and foremost to find out from the child exactly what happened. Not to simply defend my child as though my child were infallible and couldn't make any. That's a mistake a lot of parents make. And that's another very bad message that's telegraphed to children. It tells them that they could get away with anything once they know the right people. Does that sound familiar, right? Once you know you're connected to the right people, you could get away with anything. Right? You see how that lesson translates later on when they become adults, they get into the working world and they do the same thing. because they learn that from small.
That seems to be a problem that we're facing in the society. Your closing comments, Trinidad and Tobago, to parents. The lost generation, we featured a number of videos this morning, and we did advise you that's graphic content. And I think if you looked at that, a number of the schools, female school, all-girls schools, so if you're like me, you were, what the hell is going on? Closing comments.
Closing comments, talk to your children, get to know your children's teachers, the people who are responsible for them, who spend time with them during the day. Listen to the people around who can assist you with looking after your child. And as I keep saying, keep the communication lines open, all right? Your child doesn't expect you to be their friend, but they expect you to be their parent.
Your child does not expect you to be your friend, but they also expect you to be a parent. What's happening in the nation's schools? Why is it happening? We're going to take a very, very quick break. When we come back from this very short break, Rhea Rambley will join us on set. We're going to find out what's happening in the world of news, so stay with us.